Well, good morning. This is Ian R. Crane, and as you can see, I'm in a little bit of a different location from my last live stream a couple of weeks ago when I was down in South Africa giving an update from the edge of Kruger Park. Well, I'm back here now at Kirby Misperton, and 2 weeks ago when I gave the live stream update, I made the observation that Kirby Misperton was literally on the brink of being fracked because Third Energy had got pretty much all of the kit that they need to conduct the frack on the well site here at Kirby Misperton. But 2 weeks later, that frack has still not taken place. Now, what we do know is that a massive bunch of documentation was sent to Greg Clarke and arrived on his desk around about that same time 2 weeks ago. And speaking to a very respected analyst last week, he made the observation that Greg Clarke is very highly regarded in political circles, and he's a very smart guy. In fact, arguably one of the smartest guys on the cabinet. And having had the opportunity to look at this documentation, would have probably decided that much of what was in there was beyond his field of expertise, and certainly way outside of his experience. So the likelihood is that he has called in a raft of experts to look at the submissions because he wants everything to be absolutely watertight, because if he makes the wrong decision here, it could pretty much be the end of his political career. And for somebody who has political ambitions, or certainly is believed to have political ambitions, up to and including succeeding Theresa May, he will not want to get this wrong. So the kit sits on the well site here. It's got to be costing Third Energy something in the region of close on 100, probably closer to £200,000 per day. But when you've got access to unlimited offshore debt, that's probably not really too much of a problem. So Third Energy are literally waiting on Greg Clarke to sign off, and no doubt they're bringing all their lobbyists into play. No doubt you know, there are other members of the cabinet putting pressure on him, and if this analyst's observations are correct, then Greg Clarke will be man enough to resist all of that pressure, and he will wait until he is absolutely comfortable that everything is in place, and before signing it off. In which case, if that is the case, and if Greg Clarke is genuinely doing having an independent analysis conducted of all the information that's been submitted to him, then there is still a possibility that he won't sign it off and the frack won't go ahead. Now, for anyone who hasn't seen the layout of the frack pad here, then I implore you to take a look at the photographs, and I'll put one under this video, but also you can find them on the Kirby Misperton Protection Camp Facebook page. This pad was not designed as a frack pad. In fact, the Oil and Gas Authority's own documentation states quite clearly that KM8 was drilled as a conventional gas well, which is of course what John Dewar, the operations director of Third Energy, absolutely confirmed to the then MP Anne McIntosh. But of course, because she was vehemently anti-fracking, she was deselected and replaced by Kevin Hollinsnake, who is the current incumbent. And Kevin Hollinrake was put into that role to push through this agenda. That is his primary objective, to get this through. And if Third Energy actually conduct the frack, then you know there's a good possibility that Hollinrake might even stand down at the next election, because he will have done the job that he was effectively commissioned to do. But this pad, as a conventional well site, is just not big enough to handle hydraulic fracturing operations. And if you look at the layout of the pad, I can categorically state that I have never seen a well site that is so log jammed with kit. In my opinion, the pad is completely unsafe. If there was any kind of emergency, there is no possibility of getting fire trucks or rescue vehicles into the heart of the well site. And in fact, if anything does go wrong, then basically it's just going to have to be left to burn. So that in of itself should be enough to get this shut down. So if they do want to ultimately go into production, serious production from this well, i.e. to drill horizontal sections off the existing vertical shaft and then fracture those horizontal sections, they will need to extend this pad, because it's very clear that there is literally only just about enough room to get barely 1 million gallons of fluid onto the pad, and it looks like 4 pumps. I haven't zoomed right in yet, but it looks like 4 pumps. It may be 6, but 4 pumps. Now that won't be enough if they want to do a serious frack of the horizontal sections at some future date. Excuse me. So let's see what unfolds. Obviously the protection camp is still, there are still a few people down here at the gates. The protection camp, the main protection camp, just a mile and a half or so up the road. People are still coming along. Unfortunately, the conditions are not that great. There's been a lot of rain here over the last few weeks, so it's quite heavy, quite muddy. It's not quite so cold today. We haven't had a frost this morning. We have had, would you believe, more rain. Well, it's Yorkshire, so. But you know, we need more people to come here. Unfortunately, I would have to make the observation that whilst the Rydale campaign to try to prevent this from occurring in the first place has been absolutely exemplary, there has not been a single avenue left unexplored in an attempt to try and prevent this, whether it's through planning, objections, whether it's through judicial review, whether it's through appeals to Parliament, whether it's getting experts, specialists in to explain why this isn't feasible or appropriate. They have done everything they possibly can, but they have literally been ridden roughshod over by a government that's determined to try and push this agenda through during this term of Parliament. But sadly, that has not translated into boots on the ground. And you know, recently the film The Bentley Effect was shown around the UK, and Bentley was a very successful campaign in Australia. Sadly, it's one of a very few successful campaigns in Australia, because Australia has well over 25,000 fracked wells in Queensland and New South Wales alone. But in Bentley, in northern New South Wales, that was an incredibly successful campaign. But what made it successful was the fact that people came out in large numbers. Well, although we've had numbers here at Kirby Misperton, the numbers haven't been sufficient to literally bring this to a halt. Had there been even probably 10% of the number of people that went to Bentley at its peak, then this wouldn't be happening right now. Because the North Yorkshire Police, who, as we now know, have colluded with the British government to push this through. David Jones, the Chief Constable of North Yorkshire Police, we now know through Freedom of Information requests that he has been on point, colluding with the British government, with the oil and gas industry, with Third Energy, with INEOS, and would you believe, even with the specialist terrorist units, to find ways to push this through and completely ride roughshod over the last vestiges of democracy. And unfortunately, those of you who have been following this over the last couple of months or so will have seen how that translates literally into gratuitous aggression towards the protection community and towards the local residents here in North Yorkshire. So, standing here, less than 100 metres or so from the well site, right now it is beautifully, strangely quiet. There has been a test of the pumps, I think that was last weekend. I've seen some video footage of that, and the plumes of diesel emerging from the pumps as they were revved up to maximum power was really something else to see. And we do know that the air monitoring systems that are around here do seem to be strangely malfunctional each time there are these tests and obviously these massive releases of carbon monoxide and the like. There have also been methane leaks here, despite Third Energy claiming that there won't be any and that they're not going to flare here. They're going to pipe the gas to their plant at Napton Power Station a few miles to the east here, and they'll be flaring there. So, you know, nobody gets off scot-free here, and it's not just here at Kirby Misperton. So the campaign continues. Obviously it's still going on at Preston New Road on the other side of the Pennines, but Kirby Misperton is very much on point. If Greg Clarke succumbs to the pressure that he's undoubtedly being subjected to right now, then this could be signed off any day. But like I said, if the respected analyst who I was speaking to just a few days ago, if he is correct, then Greg Clarke will have the cojones, hopefully, to say, you know what, nothing of this stacks up and I'm not going to approve it. And then all of this kit will have to be moved off site. But we cannot rely on that happening. And if the pumps are fired up, then really all we can hope for is that something goes wrong. And the track record is that that's quite likely. And you know, the geology doesn't necessarily behave in the way in which it's predicted to. This is heavily faulted. In fact, there's a fault that literally runs from the well site across that field under the road. And would you believe Third Energy actually have a pipeline in very close proximity to that fault line? So there's a lot that can go wrong, but as we've learned from the experiences in Australia, you know, it can take 2 years, 5 years, or sometimes maybe even longer before the problems really start to manifest, even though the industry is often aware of them a long time before that. Just as Quadrilla were well aware that they had triggered the seismic events in the field in 2011, it wasn't until the August of that year that they finally relented and said, well, you know what, perhaps it was us, which is about as close as you're ever going to get to an admission of guilt. So that's the lie of the land. I'm back here at Kirby Misperton supporting the local community here. Please do come down and meet with us, and you know, please come down to the camp. We've got a new communal structure there, the roundhouse, and you know, we'd love to invite people to come down, have a chat with us in the evening. It's an alcohol and smoke-free zone, so you know, it's conducive with open, rational, and hopefully informative discussion. So thanks very much for joining me this morning. It was supposed to be a live stream, and unfortunately we've had some technical issues, so this is going to be uploaded hopefully before 9 o'clock, but we'll be back with you with an 8:30 live stream tomorrow morning. Thanks a lot.